Hey, First Things First listeners, before we start the show, I wanted to tell you about our brand new Fox Sports app and website, foxsports.com, reimagined for the modern sports fan. Go ahead, download the new app right now. You don't even have to pause this episode. Every day on the new app and website, you'll see the top stories in sports, plus a rich world of written content, videos, social media, and analytics to give you a 360-degree view of the most important stories of the day. Streaming live TV has never been so easy or elegant. Every Fox Sports game, including all pregame and postgame shows, as well as the televised version of this show, just a click away. For the extra invested fan, we also go deep with real-time wagering lines, trending prop bets, win probability, and key player projections. So download the new Fox Sports app or visit www.foxsports.com. Now let's start the show. Oh, good Tuesday morning to you guys. Welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. I got some hair. A late Tuesday morning, I have hair in my face. I started
Great Tuesday morning, Jenna. Don't worry, your hair's fine.
I know. The NBA started tonight.
We're all a little frazzled. Oh, yeah.
Tell me.
Yeah, I got good news for Brian Westbrook coming up in NBA picks for his Philadelphia 76ers. I got bad news for Chris Broussard and his beloved Clippers. We got all that coming up. What a great day to be on television.
By now, you know Brian Westbrook is here. He's in for Brandon Marshall. Kevin Wildes is here smiling. He can't wait to get to our top story. We stayed up late to watch what we thought was going to be a blowout.
Is straight.
We were wrong. Monday Night Football. Guys, this was the get-right game for the Steelers, right? This was the game to get their mojo back. This was the gimme against a Bengals team they'd beaten 11 straight times. But once again, the Steelers looked flat, and once again, Big Ben looked old. Flat and old is a terrible way to go through life. Bengals pulling off a stunner in this one, leaving Pittsburgh in serious danger of finishing second in the AFC North. Who would have thunk? Here is a very bundled up Ben Roethlisberger.
Do you right now, in the month of December, truly feel 100% in your arm?
Well, I don't think anybody that plays this game at any level, at any position, I should say, whether it's week 1 or week 16, feels 100%. So, no, I would say that I don't feel 100%, but nobody does right now.
Wasn't I right? I mean, how cold was that press room? He had like 16 layers on, plus the hat. Nick, for the Steelers, that's 3 straight losses now for the team. I'll say it again. I said it last week and the week before. We thought could maybe go undefeated. Is it now time to press the panic button?
Oh, it's absolutely time to mash that panic button. But before I get into why, I have to address what everyone's thinking this morning, and so I'll be the first one to do it. A hearty and sincere congratulations to the defending Super Bowl Kansas City Chiefs for essentially cinching up the 1 seed with 2 weeks to go. Good job, fellas. You're just at home hanging out. Get the 1 seed, get the bye. But now let's go micro to macro. Let's start with the game last night. That was a shameful performance, and I mean that literally. The Steelers should be ashamed of what they did, particularly offensively in the first half. In the first half, the Steelers had 8 drives. 5 went 3 and out. 2 ended in a fumble. 1 was an impossible 10-play, 17-yard drive. I don't even know how the math works there. That ended in an interception. And then in the second half, they clawed back into it. They're down 17-10, and they go 3 and out. They get it back to 24-17, and the defense lets Ryan Finley, the defense when it was 17-10 lets Ryan Finley go 9 plays, 80 yards. Ryan Finley? You could be a big-time college football player and college football fan, not be familiar with Ryan Finley's work. So both sides of the ball, unacceptable performance. And that's the micro. The macro, Brian, is this. As I mentioned, the 1 seed, see you later. The Steelers are underdogs at home next week to the Colts. If they lose that game, that means week 17 against the Browns is for the division. The division.
Insane.
It's in play. Insane. The Steelers are the 5 seed this year.
Crazy.
The 5 seed. They're guaranteed not to be the 1. They're highly unlikely to even be the 2. And it's in play they fall all the way to the 5 seed. This is, even the biggest Steelers pessimist, like our friend Colin Cowherd, I don't think saw this type of fall from grace for this football team, Brian.
Yeah, Nick, you're absolutely right. The Steelers have struggled over the last month of football. And here's the truth. They're struggling at a time where it's important for a team to be getting better, getting ready for the playoff run. Let me just give you an outline of a season from a player's perspective. August and September, you're getting in shape and developing your identity, trying to figure that out. October, you're perfecting that identity. And now November and December, it's all about the playoffs. It's all about putting wins together so you can build that confidence for the playoffs. And really, that's where the Steelers have just struggled. In the last 4 games, they haven't scored more than 20 points offensively. And that's because they have no deep threats. They have no ability to run the football. And when you're talking about Big Ben, the most important position on the field, he has struggled. He actually has looked just like Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph last season, the number 2 and number 3 quarterback for the Steelers. I mean, just look at the last 2 games, Jenna. I mean, this is just the truth. He hasn't had over 190 yards passing, 3 interceptions, and 3 touchdowns. That's worthy of the 2nd and 3rd position when you talk about quarterbacks. Kevin, here's the bigger picture, and I think Nick just hit on it. They just have the Colts left as well as the Browns. The Steelers run the risk of going into the playoffs on a 5-game losing streak. That's no way to go into the playoffs. And to me, that also spells probably an early exit to the playoffs. So, Kevin, it's just hard to see that the Steelers can figure this thing out in a short period of time.
Yeah, so I want to drive home how terrible the Steelers were. Even though this team is on the rise and getting hot, and some people have, picked them, say, you know what, be careful about this team. They're not tanking. The Steelers have been worse than the Jets, Brian. If we look at the graphics, the Steelers have only scored 16 points last 4 games. So this is absolutely brutal. It's a brutal stat. It's a brutal stat, and they're not tanking, for the record. They are not trying to drop down to the 22nd pick. So Brian, here's a take that we just saw, or it's a question. It's not a take. We just saw Drew Brees get hurt, sit down, come back, shake the rust off, and did pretty good in the second half. Is the fact that Big Ben, his arm, he said, I'm not 100%, but he feels like he's getting worse and worse and worse and worse. Should Mike Tomlin say, you know what, dude? I know this isn't like a normal injury, but it's just progressing. Let's sit you down, get you fully healthy, give you just a Ben Roethlisberger bye week so we can hit the playoffs with the Big Ben that we want to see in those first 11 games where we're putting up almost 30 points a game.
That's interesting that you mentioned that, because there was a week earlier in the season where Ben didn't practice at all, and then he came out and had a great game on Sunday. So maybe as an older player, that rest is certainly more important than practicing. But at this point in the season, Kevin, you need your team to be together. You need your team to come together and say, everything that we're doing is not right. We have to figure it out. Ben has to be much more accurate. His receivers have to catch the football. But when you talk about winning the game at the line of scrimmage, that offensive line has to play much better. They're losing in the trenches. They need to find a way to help Ben, and the way to help them is to establish the run game. They have to find a way to run the football. Right now, they have no ability to run the ball.
Yep. And James Conner out last night with that quad injury. They could really use him. Before the game, check this out. Juju Smith-Schuster doing his typical dance on the Bengals logo. I'm sure he thought, hey, there's no way this could be a bad idea. Bengals safety Von Bell disagreed. He called Juju's dance disrespectful. He said the only way to get him back is to hit him. So what'd he do? Oh, he hit him all right. And he hit him hard. Bell unloaded on Juju in the first quarter, forced the fumble. Juju, that's bad juju. And if anyone knows about juju, it's got to be you, buddy. So, Wilds, I ask you, is it time to retire the pre-game dance when Juju got hit with bad juju?
Look, that's a great question. So he's in a tough spot here, Nick. He needs to either keep doing it and double down, or just stop. But if he stops, that it looks terrible. But here's the thing. Everyone's like, the old people don't want to have fun. It's disrespectful to the players. It's disrespectful to the other team. It's not disrespectful to your grandma who doesn't love TikTok, even though oddly grandmas are popular on TikTok. Like, hey, grandma, look at this. So, Nick, I think he probably needs to double down. Unfortunately, he's probably going to get lit up again.
So here's listen, let me tell you, this is a gambler's fallacy, which is, if I lose a bet and I just double what I bet and I lose again and then I double that, eventually I only have to win one time and I'm even. And that is true. But sometimes you run out of money before you hit that winner, and then you're just bankrupt. At this point, Juju's got to walk away from the table. I'm all for fun. I'm all for celebrations. I'm all for dancing. And while I understand that while this is an end of a segment capper, because it's Juju, if this were Odell and he had then fumbled and his team had lost 3 in a row, I'm pretty sure we would have come in at 4 in the morning to start wall-to-wall programming just about that. I get that. But it is, Brian, the disrespect angle of where he is doing the dancing that I think is putting a figurative target on his back, and I think amongst players is going to be seen as in poor taste, and it's tough to do when you're fumbling and your team's not winning.
When I was playing, we had home games. We would, after our warm-ups, we would break the team down. So the entire team would go to our logo at home, and we would break down and, we would have fun. But that represents this is our house, and no team is going to come into our house and beat us. Now, when we were rolling, when we were winning football games, we would go into the opposing team's house when we were on the road.
There you go.
And we would take the middle of the field and say, listen, we are going to turn this into our house. And Kevin and Jenna, this is like me walking into your house and saying, I'm going into your refrigerator. I'm taking whatever you want to eat. I'm taking your dinner. I'm sitting in your chair, and I'm taking the remote control. And when you're the biggest, baddest person in the world, you can do that. And that's when the Steelers were 11-0. But at this point, they've lost 3 in a row. Juju can't catch the football. Now it's time to retire it. You're not the biggest, baddest person in the NFL at this point. Now it's time to go home and find a way to win a football game. Let's focus on that.
Yeah. He's trying to do the Rick James, saying bleep yo couch. But he ain't Rick James right now. So probably.
Meanwhile, Steelers have lost 3 straight. It's not great. You know what is great? We've got some NBA back tonight. LeBron and AD begin their title quest again. Is another ring all but assured? Do we even need the season to be played? The answer next. First things first. It's a little dramatic. I went too far.
What's up, First Thing First listeners? It's your boy Shay Sharp, co-host of FS1's Undisputed. I wanted to tell you about my new podcast, Club Shay Shay, where we always do something before 2 something. Each week, I sit down with a guest for a drink and conversation, and as host and proprietor of Club Shay Shay, I've welcomed in esteemed guests such as Snoop Dogg, Floyd Money Mayweather, LeVar Ball, Isaiah Thomas, just to mention a few. Whether I'm talking to an athlete, a musician, an actor, or a lifelong friend, Club Shay Shay is a place where people share inspiring and motivational stories about their journeys to prominence. The new episode drops every Monday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to Club Shay Shay now and make sure you never miss a new episode. Now, back to First Things First.
The NBA season tipping off tonight, and we get a great one. These guys love me, America. They love me. We get a great one in the late game. Lakers-Clippers. Last time we saw the Lakers, they were hoisting the Larry O'Brien Trophy. That was only 73 days ago. Tonight, a matchup of what should have been the Western Conference Finals. And so with that, we have to welcome in our guy, Chris Broussard. All right, Broussard, let's stick with the Lakers here. How do you see this season playing out for them?
Well, Jenna, first of all, let me clear up a nasty myth out there. I am not a Clippers fan, all right? They are not my beloved Clippers. I'll have Nick Wright know. I was rooting for the Lakers when he was in diapers, if not before then. All right, so I'm not a beloved Clippers fan. I pick according to knowledge, even though my knowledge was wrong last year. All right. Anyway, here it is for the Lakers. I think it's a lot different than last year. LeBron, obviously, last year came out, essentially played every game, went hard, maybe trying to get the MVP award, certainly trying to get the #1 seed, really establishing or reestablishing the culture there with the Lakers, being an example for Anthony Davis of playing through pain, playing every game. I think this year is a different approach from him. Because of his age, because of the short offseason, I think he eases his way into the season, sits out some games. doesn't go as hard. I mean, he's going to play well, but just paces himself a little more. The plan is about 28 to 30 minutes a night. We know LeBron's never really stuck to that type of minutes regiment, but I'll say he's at 30, 31 minutes a night. And they've got other players that, they don't have to rely on LeBron as much. I don't think, at least during the regular season, that they'll be as LeBron-centric as many of his teams have been. Maybe all of his teams have been. You got Marc Gasol, you got Dennis Schroeder, you got, THT, Talen Horton-Tucker, you got Kyle Kuzma still, congrats to him. You got a lot of guys that can come in there and play well. I don't think they'll fall off when LeBron goes to the bench or sits out a game like they did last year. I think it ends up, they're still the number 1 seed because they got tons of talent, and I think it ends up with another Lakers championship.
That'll be good. It'll be nice for Broussard to break his cold streak of picking champions, so I'm happy for you there. He's right about that. Obviously, the Lakers are going to win the title. I will take the over. We can go check if you had the Raptors the year before that. I'm not sure. We're going to have to check the archives. Nobody had the Raptors, to be fair to my buddy Chris Broussard. I would hammer the over on LeBron 31 minutes per game. Now, how many games will he play? I don't know. But he is not going to be on the Giannis minutes program of 28 to 30 minutes, no matter what they say. LeBron years ago made clear, for me, it's not about minutes. It is about games. Once I get myself ready to play a game, it is like the difference between how I feel after a game where I played 32 or 37 is negligible. So I think the Lakers will err on his regular minutes per game, but far fewer actual games played than last year. Luckily for them, I think they have a very strong case. They are the deepest team in the league. If the starting lineup, and I don't know if it will be throughout the year, but if it is Schroeder, KCP, LeBron, AD, Gasol, then they have off the bench, obviously Trez, Kuzma, Wes Matthews, who I think is going to be an important part of the roster. You mentioned Talen Horton-Tucker, who is going to be in the rotation. Alex Caruso, now we're at 10. Markieff Morris puts you at 11. So you have and plus Quinn Cook, who's played, but I don't think really will. You have 11 guys who can be a part of a rotation, so you can give guys games off, and they absolutely should give guys, most notably LeBron, games off. My biggest intrigue about the Lakers this year is this, Wilds. I was adamant, and I've been throughout, all of my take career, if you will, across sports, that great players unlock an extra level once they remove the burden of, can I be a champion? Can I perform in the cauldron of the biggest moments? So that means, what will Anthony Davis look like? Will we see a better version of Anthony Davis than we've ever seen? Will we see a more free version of Anthony Davis than we've ever seen? Will we see an Anthony Davis that in the regular season looks like the best player on the team? I think all of those things are in play. And now that's not because he's better than LeBron, but it's because I think AD is in the apex prime of his career, coming off a spectacular postseason run that was, he was potentially the finals MVP through the first 2 games of those finals, and then just fell off a bit. So are we going to see an Anthony Davis where he's, 60% as far as true shooting percentage, taking those open threes the team wants him to take, winning Defensive Player of the Year, those types of things? That, to me, is the biggest intrigue with the Lakers, because they are the overwhelming favorites. More than any LeBron's team has been an overwhelming favorite than probably his 3rd year in Miami, Wilds.
Yeah, so I know we keep talking about how much LeBron should rest, but Nick, I'd be more worried about Anthony Davis's rest. LeBron's proven that he can make it through multiple seasons, where AD, you look up, just normal drive to the basket, he's down clutching something or getting poked in the eye. So I also want Anthony Davis to take some time off. Jenna, I'm going to bring you in as our fitness expert. With all due respect, Nick once did dunk a racquetball and break his ulna, but you are still the fitness expert on the show.
34 years ago.
Nick, you have the silver medal. Jenna, can you describe interval training briefly?
Interval training is, yes, I can. Like all-out max effort. Then that's followed by like a period of rest or low intensity, and then it's max effort again. So you're going to go high, then low, then high. Are we working out? Because if that's a yes, I will take this mic off.
No. That's how I think the Lakers should go out this season. That's how I think LeBron and AD should do interval training, basically. LeBron said it's a marathon, not a sprint. Like, nope, buddy. It's interval training. So come out, beat the Clippers, beat the Mavs. Then your next 8 games, you only play one playoff team, the Blazers. And I know people are like, well, what about Memphis? They were the 9 seeds. Although technically they were a playoff team, they weren't really. Then you've got 2 games in Houston, Oklahoma City. Again, rest, Jenna. Zion, Warriors, Bucks. Those games you turn it up and then bring it back down. So I think it's going to be a little bit of a wave of interval training. But I would also want. I got another thing for you, Broussard. Sorry, I forgot I had this. The return of one of the best LeBrons. Wine glass LeBron. Bring him back. Don't do the miniature. This is LeBron we see when he's chilling out. Wine glass LeBron.
That's
back.
some swag right there.
So that's what I want to see. And wine glass AD right next to him.
Right. I criticize LeBron for this. I've never seen anybody walk into their job with wine, but I gotta admit that is some swagger right there. But look, I'm gonna disagree with you, Wilds and Nick, on AD. One, I think he's way too young to be on load management or anything like that. He's playing with LeBron now. There's no coincidence why he played the whole season last year. It was the presence of LeBron James. You saw the same thing with Kyrie, healthier than ever when he plays with LeBron.
All right, we're going to leave it right there. The season tips off tonight. We're handing out some NBA awards next. First things first, this is good. Stick around.
Hey, First Things First listeners, it's Charlotte Wilder here to tell you about my new podcast with Mark Titus called the People's Sports Podcast. It comes out every Thursday, and Mark and I take one of the big stories of the week, and then we go off on tangents you never saw coming. This might mean that we start talking about the Dodgers winning the World Series and end up wondering if Knicks fans deserve happiness. Or begin with LeBron's greatness and end up drafting our ultimate beer league softball team made up of old athletes. Whatever it is, the only rule of the show is that it has to be fun and funny, because these days we could all use as many laughs as we can get. So check it out wherever you get your podcasts and come down weird sports rabbit holes with us. We can't wait to have you. Now, back to First Things First.
Back here, First Things First. Guys, the NBA season kicking off tonight. We're going to preview it drawing a blank style. First up, MVP. Giannis taking home the award the last 2 seasons. Chris Broussard back with us. Broussard, the winner this season, though, will be blank.
Very tempted to go with Kevin Durant. I think he has a phenomenal year. Anthony Davis, I think, also will be in the hunt for the Lakers. And, of course, Giannis. But I'm going with Luka Doncic. Luka's got everything. There's no second star there. I think he averages close to a triple-double. And I'm going to leave a little wiggle room for him to actually average that triple-double. So I think it ends up being Luka Doncic.
Wow. My guy, Chris Broussard, even in his golden years, shows you can still learn. Just saying, hey, what's Nick's champion pick? Lakers?
Like that,
I think that's the one to go with. What's his MVP pick? Luka? I think that's the one to go with. Luka's the right answer.
I had no idea
if Luka misses,
you were picking Luka.
I know. If Luka misses less than 10 games, he will win league MVP. I would bet and have bet any amount of money on it. If Luka misses time, then KD with a Joel Embiid dark horse pick would be my other guys, but Luka's the right answer, Wild.
I cannot believe this pick is available. I'm going to go with LeBron. Obviously, the national media is dying to give LeBron the award, dying to give him the award. And I think he sits out games. He doesn't do reduced minutes, because here's what reduced minutes is. Although Nick gave a nice explanation of like, well, he likes to gear up his body and da-da-da. Miss me with that. Your points per game go down. Your stats go down. It's not like, well, when I get on my hyperbaric chamber, I like to be ready to go. It's not true. You average 27, you play for 15 minutes, you average 8, it screws the whole system up. So he misses full-on games, his stats are good, and the NBA writers who are more old than you think are like, wow, aging, they can still get it done, just like me and LeBron. LeBron MVP. I can't believe that corner was open, Nick.
Next up, anything but a title is a disappointment for the aforementioned LeBron, AD, and the Lakers in their quest to repeat. So, Broussard, the team that's most likely to disappoint this season is blank.
I'm going to say Miami because I read in The Athletic that they're the third best team in the league. I mean, that's kind of ridiculous to me. Look, they had a great run in the bubble, but I don't think they're the third best team in the East. All right, and I like them. They play hard. Jimmy Butler's a very good leader down there. Bam Adebayo will improve, as will the young guys, Tyler Hero and all that. But if people are expecting them to return to the finals, then they're going to be disappointed because I don't see them getting back to the finals, even the Eastern Conference finals.
I would agree with Broussard on Miami unless they are able to pull off a James Harden trade. But as teams are presently constituted, I'm going with teams most likely to disappoint. Neither of these teams will make the conference finals, let alone the NBA finals. The Brooklyn Nets and the Los Angeles Clippers. They are both home in round 1 or 2, and that's it. You say, stop. Okay, I'm not stopping. I'm, in fact, just starting. It's going to be about 7 months of this, and folks saying, oh, Nick, you're a hater. And then about 7 minutes of, oh, turns out Nick was right about everything with the Clippers last year. The Clippers had major structural issues last year. You know how they tried to solve them? Hey, Luke Kennard, here's $16 million a year.
Wow.
$16 million.
They do have a new coach, too, if I'm not mistaken. Don't they have a new coach?
Yeah, they had Tyler. You know what they had? And I love Tyler.
You forgot about that,
but here's... No. I didn't forget about it. Here's what they did on the bench. They said, hey, we have these giant cultural issues. So here's what we're going to do. Slide one seat over, and we're going to fix it that way. Okay, and now the Nets. Hey, the Nets. Going to be the number 1 offense in basketball. It's going to mirror beautifully with the number 28 defense in basketball. The Brooklyn Nets are going to be an abysmal defensive team. Can't win in the playoffs like that. So conference finals, Lakers, Mavs. In the West, in the East, conference finals, Sixers, Bucks, Nets, and Clippers home in round 2. Mark it down, America.
Okay. I'll mark it down. I went with Harden team TBD. Here's why. I'm about to play you a quote. Every time I listen to this sound from Harden, and Nick, I want your response. It's like that blue dress, a gold dress. Like, I see a blue dress. Then you look at it again. You're like, I see a gold dress. So we can play the sound, Nick, and react and tell me, is this optimistic or pessimistic? Because I can't figure it out.
They'd be the best basketball player in the world. As a team, try to get in the top 3 seed, and always give yourself a chance. That's the most important. If you're in the top 3 seeds, and obviously you're one of the teams, in the game of basketball. But when it comes postseason time, you give yourself a chance on home court advantage.
Thank you. What? Top 3? That's what we're talking about now.
Top 3.
My goals are top 3.
Hold on, Wilds. Can I translate that for you?
Yeah,
that is the osmosis of spending a decade around Daryl Morey. Because every NBA champion, aside from the 94 Rockets, was a top 3 seed. So the idea is, if you want to win the title, you have to be a top 3 seed in the conference. And for him personally, he wants to win the MVP. That's the translation there. And so that's why...
Wow, I love that quote.
I think the Rockets got to hear that and be happy. Because he's never going to give up games. Oh, well, that might be true, too. Now, that part might be true. Top 3 team elsewhere. All right, that might be true as well, Watt.
That's a top 3 in the East.
All right, moving on. Devin Booker and the Suns on the come-up. They went 8-0 in the bubble and add future Hall of Famer CP3. Broussard, the NBA team most likely to overachieve this season, is blank.
A little bit of a shocker here. I'm going to go with the Washington Wizards. Westbrook, Scotty Brooks reunited. Bradley Beal and Westbrook. That's a great backcourt. I'm not saying it's the greatest fit, but 2 wildly talented players. Got a couple shooters around them. I'm going with Washington.
Dallas Mavericks, they're going to make the conference finals. I think the additions they've made Most notably, Josh Richardson is massive for them to help them defensively. They are going to have, by the end of the year, the second best player in basketball, and they're going to play in the conference finals, of course, the best player in basketball. So the Mavs have high expectations. They're still going to overachieve because they're going to be a conference finalist. So I say Dallas Wilds.
All right, I'm saying Warriors. Surprise, the Warriors. Remember the Warriors, the dynasty that just got the #2 pick? And Kelly Oubre's going to have a breakout season. There's no reason to think like they sneak into the playoffs when we just saw Chris Paul get into the middle of the bracket, carrying his team single-handedly. So I think the Warriors are going to oddly exceed everyone's expectations, even though they're one of the best teams in the last 10 years.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch them tonight. Next up, reigning Rookie of the Year John Morant, giving us highlight play after highlight play last season. So Broussard, the player that'll have the most jaw-dropping highlights this season will be blank.
Ja will certainly be in the running, but I am going with Zion. Look, Zion obviously has to stay healthy, but he's going to get regular minutes this year, no minutes restrictions and all that. He's going to be dunking on guys left and right. We're going to be seeing it every night on the highlights and morning. I'm going with Zion.
Wow. I wonder if it'll be enough for Broussard to raise Zion ahead of the likes of Jaylen Brown and his NBA player tiers. Excited to see it. I love that answer, but my answer is going, I think, you know what's I think a little overrated? Dunks. As far as highlights, we've seen them all. Until someone breaks out the front flip, we've seen them all. So stop showing me Bam Adebayo dunks. I should have told the producers what I was going to say here. Bam Adebayo for the defensive end, not for any of this. The highlight of the year is going to be Bam Adebayo catching someone's shot in mid dunk attempt and starting an outlet. Bam Adebayo, who had the highlight of the bubble with his block in the Eastern Conference Finals. So Bam Adebayo is my answer, not for any of the highlights we're showing. Bad job by me communicating with our producers, but for what he'll do on the defensive end.
Did you say what?
Oh, boy.
Bam Adebayo's blocks? Oh, sorry, I just fell asleep for a little while.
He said Bam's
Bam
one
Adebayo's blocks. Those would be fantastic. Chris Paul, correct answer. The older Chris Paul gets, the more creative he has to get. This is the single-handedly prettiest move I've ever seen in basketball from 2 years ago on Bradley Beal.
Wow.
So it's a combo. I'm saying
pivot.
Chris Paul and Devin Booker. He's like, Devin Booker, let me show you how to do this. It's the prettiest play I've ever seen. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, it's so pretty.
If we can get a shot of Bam Adebayo fingertip deflection, I'm sure that'll drive ratings through the roof. Get ready, the TikTokers. Viral
nothing
clip
like
of a deflection from Bam.
Footwork from 17 feet away to drive ratings. You nincompoop.
On to the Warriors. Klay Thompson's out. Can Steph Curry carry Golden State to the playoffs? To be discussed. Much more first things first. Next. We'll make our own ratings. It's Christmas Day. An NFL special as the Vikings take on the Saints. Coverage 3:30 Eastern on Fox, also available on NFL Network and streaming on Prime Video.
That's a great
Love it. Can't wait. It is. Makes me feel happy. The early game tonight, Warriors and Nets. Steph Curry taking the court for the first time in what feels like forever. That's a real stat, forever. Another way to put it, 13 months against his former teammate Kevin Durant, who's making his Nets debut. Steph will once again be without Klay. He's done for the year with a torn Achilles. So let's start there, Nick. Can Steph Curry carry the Warriors to the playoffs?
I believe he can, and I believe he will. But I also am as excited to find out if I'm right on this as almost anything that is going to take place this year. Because Steph Curry's place in history is unimpeachable. Broussard, I just did, and I haven't released it yet, but my 50 best players of the last 50 years, I spent way too much time on it over the last 9 months. And Steph Curry came in 13th, right behind Kevin Durant, Dr. J, Moses Malone. Like that, we are talking about the greats in the history of the game. Guys nowhere near Steph Curry on the pyramid. Allen Iverson, Russell Westbrook, James Harden's relatively close, but he's not 13th. All of those guys showed you that they could take a mediocre to bad supporting cast and will them to 45 to 50 wins and a playoff berth. We don't know if Steph can do that. I think he can do that. And Broussard, we know that if you put Westbrook on Steph's Warriors in 2015, they would have been way worse. We know that. But is it possible that if you put Steph on Russ's Thunder in 2017, switched him out, that the Thunder would have been worse? That that he is the perfect player for a good team to make it an all-time team. But if you put him on a bad team or a mediocre team, that he can't do what a guy like Allen Iverson, who's an inferior player to him, could do. I want to find out. So I believe he can, but to me it's a question mark, and we haven't seen him do it before. Last year he broke his hand, so we didn't get the opportunity. So to me, that is a super interesting storyline of this season, Broussard.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. I like your ranking. I don't know if it's exactly 13, might be 14, somewhere around there.
Right.
But I think he's the best small player ever. And I know he's 6'3", but he's a small, below-the-rim player. I've always had Isaiah Thomas from the Pistons as the greatest small player. Isaiah's mad at me because I moved Steph ahead of him, but this guy changed the game. And I'm with you. I want to see, has the game kind of caught up to Steph? You know, where you got Damian Lillard taking these shots from nearly half court, Jamal Murray, other guys Trae Young shooting these deep jump shots. I think the word is, can he? Yes, he certainly can, and they'll be in the hunt for that, one of those last playoff spots. But if I had to bet, I'd probably bet against it. Not really a slight on Steph, but I'm looking at the supporting cast. And Draymond Green's the second best player, but we all know that Draymond is not a scorer. He has to be around 3 bona fide, or at least 2 bona fide great scores for him to be able to play his game, do the other things, and really be effective. They don't have that this year. Their second and third best scorers, Andrew Wiggins and Kelly Oubre, guess what? They can't shoot. So they have got some problems with that roster. James Wiseman, who I really like, thought it was a great pick in the lottery. He hasn't even played yet. And when he does play, it'll be the first time in like 13 months. So what's he going to do as a young kid on that team? So I just don't think he has a supporting cast. I'm with you, Nick. I want to see if he can lift them into the playoffs. I think he will have put on a heck of a show if he does it, but I would bet against it.
Okay, so Nick, if he does it, I feel like your 13th ranking is solidified. Now he proves that he could pull like the Allen Iverson, you know, get to the final, step over Ty Lue, win a game, then get swept. But what if he doesn't do it? If he doesn't do it, it feels like you're low-key saying that, like, this is going to be a mark on his resume. Well, because, but at the same time, they're not built. They're not built for that. Like, the thing about, like, that Iverson team was built for Iverson. It's like, all right, let's put Mutombo in the middle and Aaron McKee, you help out. Like Steve Kerr last year, they talked about, Steve Kerr was like, I'm not going to James Harden the guy. It's a lot on him, and we're not built to space out like that.
Well, but here's the thing.
If it doesn't happen.
So hold on, let me respond to the Kerr thing. I get that if it's how do we want to win. But if it's we either win playing a certain way or lose playing our way, then you've got to choose option A unless option A actually isn't available to you. So right now, I'm so glad Broussard brought up Isaiah Thomas, because on my 50 best players of the last 50 years, you know who's 14th? Isaiah Thomas. But Isaiah Thomas could do this. Isaiah Thomas he never put up the jaw-dropping numbers except for when he had to. And yes, he was always on good teams, but he went to 3 straight finals and won 2 titles without another top 75 all-time teammate. And while the guy averaged like 17 points per game, every time his team was in an elimination game, he threw up a 43-point, 14-assist game because he had that gear. I would never penalize Steph Broussard for a hypothetical. That if his whole career he got to play alongside Clay and you just never knew what he would look like without him, you can't say, well, I don't think he would have been able to do it, so I'm going to penalize him. But if we find out that when he doesn't have the great players around him, he does look a lot more like Dame. Dame, who as much as everyone loved him, last year, when it was just him and CJ, that team was 32 wins headed into the bubble. They were out of the postseason, or maybe 32 wins before the bubble started. I don't remember exactly, but they were in trouble. If that's what this Warriors team looks like, then it is hard to look our mutual friend Isaiah Thomas in the eye and say, this guy was better than you. And so it's, again, we're in the margins, but I do think it's things that real diehard NBA fans care about. And we are the guys that Steph Curry is considered his contemporaries historically, all of them could take almost any roster and guarantee a playoff berth. Not a finals appearance, not multiple, but a playoff berth. And if this year Steph can't take this roster and get it above the Pelicans, I do think that makes you, Broussard, reconsider a touch where he is historically. Again, and we're not saying, oh, he's out of the list now, but I do think when we're talking about these types of things, this is a piece of information that's not yet part of the puzzle.
It is interesting. I think we have to remember, too, Allen Iverson, but for the year they went to the finals, they had some bad seasons in Philadelphia with Allen Iverson. They had years where they went out early in the playoffs. I mean, he didn't have much playoff success at all, except for the one year that Larry Brown dragged that team to the finals. That was a good team, but they were built around Iverson.
Just quickly, though, Broussard, before you finish your point, just quickly before you finish your point and then go on.
Yep.
But they were making the playoffs, and Iverson, I don't have it in front of me.
In the East.
Iverson's also like 42 on the list. Like, you know what I mean? He's not Steph Curry. We're not talking about him in those terms. But go ahead and finish your point.
I would agree with you that this is an interesting year, and it is hard to say if he can't get them to the playoffs, maybe it does change his ranking. However, he also has this in his corner. Guess what? He changed the game. How many guys in NBA history can we say literally changed the game of basketball? He has changed the way it's played, and that is huge for him in terms of his historical rankings, period. And that won't go away, ever.
All right, so I want to just dig into, Nick, to Steve Kerr's take that he's not going to James Harden him. So here are the top 5 usage rates of all time. If we just wanted to go, if Steve Kerr wants to take a look at this, all time, Russ won MVP. These are the only 5 guys who have 38 and above usage rate. But there's one other guy, if we open up the aperture just a little bit, the last time we saw Steph really cook, boom, same as Jordan. So if Steve Kerr says, you know what, Steph, we need Davidson Steph, new nickname, Davidson Steph to come out.
Wait, was that when he was at Davidson?
Yeah, senior year Davidson. Senior year Davidson, he had same usage rate as Michael Jordan, and that's when the world fell in love with him. So I think Steve Kerr, you can take this and show it to him like, you know what? Cook a few games for us.
Free advice.
Cook. Do your thing. Be Davidson Steph and go. And because not only would it give us the best chance to win, I was watching First Things First, and I got to keep you at number 13 on Nick Wright's list. So I think it's a double win.
And by the way, even if the Warriors are the 6th seed, it gets Steph in the MVP conversation. And now if we're talking about moving up the rankings, if all of a sudden he gets a third MVP and ties Larry Bird in that category, now we're really talking here. So it could go in either direction here, Jenna.
But when you are talking about usage rate, he hasn't been the most durable the last couple of years. He's got a ton of injuries that have kept him out, so you'll see how far he goes. All right, let's turn to Broussard's Clippers. Is it title or bust for Kawhi? That's next. He loves the Clippers. He's rooting for him, loves them so much. When you think Broussard, you think Clippers. Back here, first things first. The NBA getting underway tonight. The late game, you got the Clippers and Lakers. Only one team lived up to expectations last season. The other one turned out to be Broussard's Clippers, who folded in the second round against the Nuggets. And now questions surrounding Kawhi Leonard's long-term future with the team. A very candid Kawhi met with the media yesterday.
For my situation right now, I'm just focused on this season. You know what I mean? I'm not saying I'm going anywhere else or staying here, but I'm just focused on the season. And, you know, obviously if I stay healthy, the best decision is to decline a player option, but that doesn't mean I'm leaving or staying. But I'm focused on the season, like I said. We'll talk about that when the time is right.
So, Broussard, I've heard enough professional athletes give press conferences or interviews where they talk about, we'll discuss this until the end of the season for a long time. Reading between the lines, could this be Kawhi's last season with the Clippers?
First of all, Jenna, you've been spending way too much time with Nick Wright to call them my beloved Clippers. So that's number one.
Beloved.
The Kawhi, he's not going anywhere. I guess, you never say never, okay? But he has wanted to get home to Southern California. He's there now.
Yep.
Where is he going? He's been on 3 teams. Does he really, in the prime of his career, want to move to a 4th? That would look bad. I mean, it looked bad when he couldn't close out the Nuggets in the playoffs. But he would look like a ring chaser. And I don't think that's what Kawhi is. I don't think there's ring chasing in his bones at all. And so where's he going? You're in a great situation. You're at home. You have a second star with you in Paul George. You got a nice supporting cast. You've got a very good coach. You got an owner that's willing to spend as much as it takes to win a championship. You got Jerry West as a consultant. What in the world else could you want? I see no reason at all for Kawhi Leonard to leave the Clippers, and it would be incredibly disappointing. Let me last say this. If Paul George fizzles in the playoffs again this year, and Kawhi was really disappointed and really starts thinking, I don't know if he can be my second guy to win a championship, guess what? They would trade him in a heartbeat if Kawhi wanted him out. No, I don't think he's going anywhere.
Okay. All right, so a lot to unpack here. You asked what else could he want? I don't know, to maybe play for a team that isn't the 7th most popular team in the city they play in, but I guess that's what he signed up for. So, you know, that's the life of being a Clipper, I suppose. Where could he go, you said? I don't know. Dallas and Miami kept their powder dry for Giannis. He's now not there. The weather in Miami is as good as the weather in L.A. Pat Riley seems at least something I'd consider if I were Kawhi, if this year goes the way it's going to go, with the Clippers once again failing to make the first conference finals appearance in the history of that franchise. But the last thing you said there, Broussard, is the most notable about Paul George. Major prediction number 2 for me on this show. Next year, one of the two, Kawhi or Paul George, is not a Clipper. Next season, one of them's gone. Now, either Kawhi because he chooses to leave or Paul George because he's traded. But this team is not going to be better than last year. And last year, they weren't close to being good enough. They lost to a team that got smoked by the Lakers. And I understand the newest $64 million man, Luke Kennard, and, fellow minted $64 million man midseason acquisition Marcus Morris think that that's going to be the difference, along with Serge Ibaka. But it ain't. Serge Ibaka, who was, by my count, the 4th best player on an Eastern Conference semifinalist last year. Wow! Puts him over the top. But I don't quite follow that logic, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're going to get the Serge Ibaka that the Thunder thought they had when they got rid of Harden to keep him 8 years ago. Maybe that's it. Maybe I'm wrong there. But the other thing, Wilds, that Kawhi is doing here is making sure that any of these cultural changes that Ty Lue might be trying to implement can't really implement them. Because guess what? Kawhi is keeping the screws to him. Oh, okay. You don't want me to live in San Diego? Well, how would you like if I end up living in Miami? How would you like that, Clippers? When you have no picks left?
No possible
you don't
way.
think it's a leverage play? You don't think it's a leverage play? You don't think it's keeping the screws to the Clippers, letting them know, you better let me do my thing, my load management, my schedule, my practices, because I can leave. He signed a 2+1 instead of a 3+1 for a reason, right? That he did that on purpose. So I'm just taking the man at his word. He doesn't know. He said he doesn't know what he's doing. I don't think he knows what he's doing.
So how do you think these meetings go between Ty Lue and Kenny Atkinson and Chauncey Billups when Kawhi shows up to the plane 20 minutes late? They're like, oh, you're the superstar. Oh, I think like, you know what? One more time, dude, and we're fueling up and we're out of here, and you can drive to Houston.
No chance.
I don't think there is going to
Then
be
he'll leave.
any chance this happens. That's the reason it's out, Nick. It's not out. That info is out for a reason. The info is out to put the screws to him. If it comes out, this is a bad look for him.
The other
I feel like that coaching organization is going to be like, you know what? This is how championships are won. Doing the little things, and I specifically, I love Chauncey. I think Chauncey, you're not going to disrespect those guys where it's feeling like where Doc Rivers was running a loose ship. I feel like their coaching staff is going to get it all locked down.
Okay. Ty was there last year. And listen, I will give Chauncey Billups this. He is without question the best point guard on the Clippers organization. But he's a coach, not a point guard, so that didn't really help him. So I just Broussard, you don't think Kawhi is going to squeeze his pressure points here? You think he's just going to change? He squeezed him in San Antonio to get out. He did it in Toronto, they won, and he did it last year. Why would he change?
I think he is turning the screws on the organization, keeping pressure on them, similar to how LeBron did when he used to sign those one-year deals in Cleveland. However, I think it is to make sure they continue to improve basketball-wise.
That's right.
I don't think it's so he can be late to 75% of the flights. I don't think that's why. I think he's got enough professionalism and enough pride to understand, look, some things do have to change. And if he's about winning, then he needs to be on time for the most part when it comes to the flights. I do think it's about basketball, Nick. Look, let's not rest on our laurels. Let's continue to try to get better and better. That is keeping the pressure on him. But if all of this is about so I can be late to flights, there's a part of me that's like, dude, we ain't winning with you anyway if that is your mentality. Because here's the question about Kawhi. Here's the question, Nick, about Kawhi. And as much as I like him, when he was in San Antonio and won his championship, he was not the leader of that team, obviously, right?
Correct.
He was like a pup. He was probably the fourth best player during the regular season. Then when he won it in Toronto, he wasn't the leader.
Not the leader.
Both of those situations, nothing was expected of him. Nothing. Last year, the first time he had to carry a burden that LeBron has carried his entire career, I got to win. Like, the pressure's on you to win championships. Everybody's expecting you to do it. He did melt down in that series with Denver. So if this is about being late for flights, calling practice, then that would show he's not the leader you need for championship teams.
To be fair, I am not trying to say that's all that this is about, but I do think having the full control over everything is part of what this is about. But here is what's disappointing. If you're a Clippers fan, as our ace producer Charles Dixon is, and I'm sorry to out him publicly as a Clippers fan, he is great at his job. I don't know if he wanted the world to know he's a Clippers fan. If you are hoping that they can actually be a championship contender and not a fraudulent one as they were last year, you know what I would have liked to hear less of this offseason? Blaming Doc Rivers for everything. You know what I would have liked to hear a single time this offseason? Kawhi or Paul George say, you know what? In the second halves of Game 6 and 7, we had huge leads, and I played terribly. That is, maybe we weren't going to win the title, but we would have won that series if I was better. I haven't heard that quote yet. And so I've heard about we needed more time and we needed better chemistry. And say it, Wilds. Sorry?
I thought Paul George came out and said that. I thought Paul George said that, and then he also
Paul George said that. Paul George said that,
that,
and then he was like, "You're using me like I'm JJ Redick, and you know it's all Doc Rivers." And Kawhi obviously has not said much. Jenna, I think it's going to be a little deja vu for the Clippers, but maybe Luke Kennard fixes it. I don't know.
I still love Wild's point. You're putting the screws to me. I'm putting the screws to you. There's nothing better. We got to take a turn back to football now. It was a good night for Juju and the Steelers. Wait till you see what happened in this game. Oh, wait, it wasn't a good night for Juju and the Steelers. Boom. Next, first things first. Let's move on. RHF. Nailed it. Time for Nick's NBA pyramid.
Oh!
Our guy Nick Wright's been waiting for this morning since the split second the Lakers won the title 73 days ago. Nick, take us through the best players in the NBA.
Before we show it, I will postulate this. The NBA has never had more talent than it does right now. The league is as deep as it's ever been. Some would argue that would make championships won right now way even heavier than championships won in an earlier era, if you're ever going to do a player comparative discussion. But we don't have to get into that. Show the pyramid. Here are the 36 best players in the league. We know who's at the top, LeBron James. Tier 2, the guy who's going to win league MVP, Luka Doncic, and the guy who last time we saw him play was the second best player in the league, Kevin Durant. Tier 3, you've got a guy who one day will win an MVP in Anthony Davis, and then two guys who've won MVPs in Giannis and James Harden. Tier 4, these are the rest of your top 10. The hardest omission of that top 10 was the first guy on Tier 5, Joel Embiid. You have Murray and Mitchell, who had unbelievable bubbles, along, of course, with Jimmy Butler, an unbelievable bubble. And CP3, folks, going into last year, he was further down the pyramid, got himself back up, finishing in the top 5 MVP voting. And then you've got really, really good second options for teams on tier number, what's that? Tier 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then you've got, again, think about how deep the league is right now. When guys like Bam and Kyrie and Devin Booker and Bradley Beal aren't even top 20 players. And then you round out your top 36. Trae Young is not a top 30 player, and he averaged 30 points per game. That is your NBA player pyramid, Broussard, going into this season. We haven't had games yet, so we don't need to adjust anything. The producers said they want to do a whole segment on this, but I don't know how much time we can spend on Broussard and Wild saying that's perfect. It's like it was just inceptioned into our brains. So go ahead, Broussard, but I assume yours would look the exact same.
Well, I was told I can only switch one guy. One guy moves up or down, which is a problem because a lot of this pyramid needs to change. Now, here's the guy. Switch Kawhi Leonard and Luka Doncic. The disrespect for Kawhi Leonard is outlandish, Nick Wright. This is a guy that's got 2 championships, that led a team to a title, that plays both ends of the floor, and you're putting Luka Doncic ahead of him now. I got Luka. I said earlier in the show, Luka will win the MVP. That's my prediction. So you may be saying, well, how do you move him down? The best player in the world doesn't necessarily win MVP. Steve Nash won 2 in a row, and he was never the best player in the league, maybe not even top 5. Dirk Nowitzki won MVP, was never viewed as the best player in the world. Shaq only won 1, and he was the best player for several years. So that is not the issue. Kawhi Leonard plays both ends of the floor. Luka Doncic has not yet won a playoff series. Not yet won a playoff series, and Kawhi's won 2 titles. And you're disrespecting him like this? Show a little objectivity, Nick Wright. My goodness.
Okay. This is, even by Chris Broussard and his love of the Clippers standards, this is a bridge too far. I mean, if we're just going to say it's reputational and it's guys who are two-time champions who play both ends of the court, then I guess I need Akeem Olajuwon higher up here as well. But unfortunately for Akeem and for Kawhi, it's based on this season. I'm old enough to remember the playoffs last year, where you're right. Luka's team did lose to Kawhi's team, even though Luka thoroughly and completely outplayed Kawhi Leonard in that series, averaging, a humble 31, 10, and 9, and the game-winning shot in, what was that, game 4 of the series? Right in Kawhi's, no. It wasn't in Kawhi's eye, because the best defender in basketball wouldn't guard Luka the whole series. And then Kawhi, in the next round, got a 3-1 lead, and what did he do? This is what he did. Just melted down. It's like, oh no, too much pressure. Oh no, we're up 17. Oh, I'm 1 for 11 in the second half of a game 7. Everyone's making fun of way off P because he's hitting the side of the backboard. Meanwhile, I'm not even taking the shots. No. Give me, somebody call in Reggie Jackson. Where's Marcus Morris? Lou Williams, come save me. What, Broussard?
At least Kawhi has gotten to the level where there's expectations and pressure on him. Your guy Luka isn't even at that level yet. Anything Luka did was gravy because nobody expects anything. And you got him as the second, third best player in the world. I love Luka.
I do.
He is awesome. Like I said, he might average a triple-double this year. But to put him right now ahead of Kawhi Leonard, ahead of Giannis, ahead of Anthony Davis, that is blasphemy.
Okay, if you wanted to argue that Giannis or Anthony Davis should be replacing Luka, I wouldn't be so apoplectic. But you've got Kawhi not only replacing Luka, but jumping ahead of Giannis and Anthony Davis. Get the hell out of here. We just saw it. Last year happened. We can't pretend. I know it was the worst moment of your sports life, watching the Clippers melt down, your lifelong team. But you can't pretend it didn't happen. I know you want to forget it, but we can't forget it for the sake of this analysis.
You think just because you throw out $10 words like apoplectic that you're going to win this argument? You're just what you said. That argument, you can't have it both ways, Nick, right? What did we see Giannis doing last year in the playoffs? And even the year before in the playoffs when Kawhi shut him down and outplayed him.
That's true.
Yet you've got him above Kawhi. Anthony Davis had 9-point games, 5 rebound games in the playoffs. But you got him ahead of Kawhi Leonard. My goodness, show Kawhi some respect.
I did. Wild, just so you know, here's the respect I showed Kawhi. I really, really considered flipping him and Embiid and having Kawhi outside of the top 10. But out of respect to what he accomplished previously, I left him there.
It's too much.
Go ahead, Wild.
Go ahead, Wild.
Okay. I have one issue. Can we put up the whole pyramid, please? So I can look, because my guy is so far down on the pyramid, it's outrageous. Especially because when you're talking about pyramids and triangles, that's like his thing. You can't have Kyrie that low on any pyramid, because it's something about, the angles of the pyramid is really offensive to him. So here are 3 reasons why Kyrie should be moved up multiple tiers, multiple levels. Reason number 1, the guy's healthy and rested. Not only is he posting Instagrams saying he's eating, quote, clean, high vibrational fruit, he's also played 20 games in the last 19 months. So we've seen this guy. We know when he's healthy, he can be great. Reason number 2, he's better with legends. The higher Kevin Durant is, the better Kyrie will play. So if you got Kevin Durant on your second tier, Kyrie's right there. There shouldn't be that big of a gulf between those guys, because Durant's success is Kyrie's success. Reason number 3, with all due respect to Dave Cowens and who else was it? Bill DeBusschere, I think. Best player coach since Bill Russell. Best player coach, Nick. So the fact that he's got those duties as well, I think Kyrie needs to be moved up for his coaching and playing ability.
Okay.
Dave DeBusschere.
He needs to be ahead of Ben Simmons. He needs to be ahead of Ben Simmons. Come on.
Be ahead of Ben Simmons? Ben Simmons was All-NBA last year. I'm going to try to respect the Kyrie conversation the way he would want to. So let me try to cleanse the air. Let me try to get the right auras so I can be fair to Kyrie. I don't want to be unfair here, and I want to make sure I'm in the right mind space to give a fair analysis of Kyrie. Chakra's good. I think the planets are nice and aligned. Thank you so much. So now we can talk about Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving has never contributed to an ounce of winning when he was not alongside LeBron James. That's just a fact. And in fact, when he was, you can say, well, in Cleveland, before LeBron got there, those teams were terrible. No problem. But in Boston, they weren't. And they were better every year by every metric as far as wins when he didn't play. He then got to Brooklyn, and that team, sure as hell to me, looked pretty interesting in the bubble. Looked like they liked each other in the bubble. That team looked like they had some fight, even though they were basically the G League Nets. So if we show the pyramid, it's going to be hard-pressed for you to find the guy I should move Kyrie up for. Now, do I think he is a transcendent scorer? Do I think he's arguably the best ball handler in the history of the league? I do. Do I think he contributes to winning? I don't. Do I think alongside Durant he can be dynamic? Sure. And yeah, absolutely. No, he hit one of the biggest shots ever. No one's questioning the talent. No one's questioning the talent. Just tell me who you want me to move down. Tell me who you want me to move down.
Ben Simmons.
If you want to argue,
Ben Simmons.
Ben Simmons could have won Defensive Player of the Year last year. Yeah. So flip him?
Coulda. You just said a guy, flip them, number one. You just said a guy that hit either the biggest or second biggest shot in NBA history. Yes. The guy that delivered the championship to Cleveland in 2016 doesn't contribute to winning? No, that doesn't even make sense.
What I think I said...
Because if he didn't contribute that 25-footer, Cleveland wouldn't have won.
No. Okay, well, the game was tied, and the game was tied. So the idea that they wouldn't have won, there's no evidence for that whatsoever.
He also had 41 points in one of those games.
In Game 6. In Game 5 or Game 6. Absolutely.
In that series.
So if I said Kyrie has never contributed to winning, I misstated it. What I thought I said was Kyrie has never contributed to winning when he's not alongside LeBron James, the greatest leader and player in the history of the league. We'll get to see if this changes this year. Now, push come to shove, if I am discounting Kyrie because of the off-court shenanigans, and maybe I am, maybe it's polluted my brain, that's why I tried to cleanse it. If you want to flip Kyrie and Tatum, I'm okay with it. If we want to move Tatum down because he was the last guy in on that
Tatum should be up too,
and move Kyrie up. Oh my God, Tatum should be up.
Tatum should be above Jamal Murray and Donovan Mitchell. You're a prisoner of the moment, Nick. You because Mitchell and Murray were great in the bubble. If that's the case, put Jimmy Butler right below LeBron. If we're putting all this emphasis on the Bucks, it should be Jimmy Butler and Dame Lillard second to LeBron if that's what we're talking about. Because Jason Tatum is better than both of those guys.
Okay, it's not the bubble, it's the playoffs. And Donovan Mitchell, his rookie season, I don't know. All I know is Donovan Mitchell, same draft class as Jason Tatum, his rookie season, beat a team in the first round with Donovan Mitchell, I think, scoring 36 in the closeout game and averaging nearly 30 for the series. Donovan Mitchell then last year had multiple 50-point playoff games. Again, same draft class as Tatum. Jamal Murray, on the other hand, outplayed head-to-head a guy that you say should be second on the list, Kawhi Leonard, in the playoffs. I don't care if it's bubble, out of bubble, echo chamber, or an eco chamber. That matters. So Jason Tatum, I don't care if he grew to 7'4" this offseason, according to Danny Ainge, I can't elevate him above guys who have actual pelts on the wall because once upon a time he dunked on LeBron in a series he averaged 16 points per game. That's what I need to see.
How many conference finals has Jason Tatum been in?
2.
Jonathan Mitchell went out in the first round last year. I get it that he scored. He had a great season. He's great. Don't get me wrong. But to put him ahead of Jason Tatum is ridiculous. And Jamal Murray for that matter. One good playoff run?
Wow.
We can and probably will argue this all day. But for purposes of our little show here, take a turn, talk some Lakers. Is a repeat all but assured for LeBron and AD, or will Broussard's Clippers turn around and win it all? That's next. First things first.
That sage smells terrible.
Christmas Day, an annual. It's an NFL special as the Vikings take on the Saints. Coverage begins at 3:30 Eastern on Fox. Also available on NFL Network and streaming on Prime Video. I love this promo so much. I want it to last. It makes me happy. I want it to be an annual thing. I'm sorry.
It's a really great promo.
Time for your Whole Foods Prime Performance, brought to you by Whole Foods Market, your go-to for all things holiday. The Los Angeles Lakers are favorites to repeat as NBA champs. Time for the moment of truth. Before we get to that, though, well, you know what? Let's get right there. Nick, I'm going to start with you. Who wins the finals?
Well, listen, spoiler alert, America, everyone's going to pick the Lakers, and you know why? Because everyone should pick the Lakers. They have the greatest player ever. They have another top 4 player in the league, and they're super deep, and they're going to win the title. The most intrigue is going to be, who are they playing in those finals? Because, as we learned in 2019, that's right. Listen, an injury or two, and you can have massive finals upsets. And nobody hopes injuries, nobody wishes injuries, but the reason you don't ever just punt on a season is you don't know how the bracket's going to fall. You don't know who's going to tweak an ankle, who could miss time. So I think we're going to get a Lakers-Sixers NBA Finals. And my rationale for that, Broussard, is the following. I think that the Sixers, as presently constituted, massively upgraded at coach, at least for the regular season. We'll see for the postseason. And I know that sounds disrespectful to Brett Brown. I guess it kind of is, but that's how I feel. I think their roster is far better as far as fitting, and I think they're going to get the best version of Tobias Harris, a guy they signed to a couple $100 million, who is now reunited with the coach where he had his biggest professional success. I think Embiid is going to get back on the trajectory he was on 2 years ago when he averaged 28 and 14 and being a fringe MVP candidate. And the other reason I like the Sixers, Broussard, is because if it doesn't work, their escape hatch is acquiring James Harden. Like, their plan B is acquire a top 6 player in the league. So I think it will work. But if it doesn't, they still have a great path to the finals. So for that reason, Lakers, Sixers, old school center matchup in the finals. Anthony Davis, Joel Embiid, by the way, is my NBA Finals pick, with the Lakers, of course, winning.
I like a lot of what you said. I have to admit it. I've got the Lakers winning the championship as well. And I do like Philadelphia. I think Doc is a big improvement. I think he'll have Embiid on the box more. Believe it or not, they were like 24th or something like that in the league last year in shots at the rim, which is kind of ridiculous when you got a guy like Joel Embiid. They got more shooting around him. And I like Ben Simmons. I know I said Kyrie Irving should be ahead of him, and he should, but I do like Ben Simmons. But it remains to be seen if in today's NBA you can have a primary ball handler who not only can't shoot, but won't shoot. And then your plan B with James Harden, I agree. I love that. I would do it now if I'm Philadelphia. However, bringing in Harden at the trade deadline, there's a lot of adjustment there. So will they be ready to get to the finals when they get James Harden? I'm not sure about that. I'm going with Brooklyn. I think Kevin Durant is going to be just what he was when he left. I think Kyrie Irving is unstoppable. Now, my only question with the Nets is Kyrie's mentality. Will he rub teammates the wrong way? Will his, different type of behavior get on guys' nerves? If not, if they don't have those types of issues, then Brooklyn is going to be very, very good. I think Steve Nash with Mike D'Antoni next to him, they will be good on the bench. Jared Allen, Joe Harris, you got some great role players, Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert. This team is deep. They can score on anybody. I think Brooklyn's going to win the East, so I got the Lakers over the Nets in the finals.
Here's my concern with Brooklyn, Broussard. I think they're going to have the #1 offense in basketball. And the only team that I think maybe could be close is Dallas. But I think Brooklyn is going to be, and there are going to be nights they score 140 points and it looks easy. I think Joe Harris is going to become a household name. Yep. They still have depth. They have so many scorers. And even though I said what I said about Kyrie, he obviously is a transcendent offensive talent. They don't have to be, if they're the #1 offense, they don't have to be a great defense. But Broussard, why aren't they going to be a bottom 5 defense? Why aren't they going to be a horrendous defense, which while in the regular season won't kill them, in the playoffs you cannot win with a bottom 5 defense? That would be my concern with Brooklyn. I don't see any super plus defenders aside from maybe Jarrett Allen on the entire roster.
You got 2 rim protectors in Allen and DeAndre Jordan. Kevin Durant is a good defender. And when the stakes raise, when we're playing for a championship, not just to squeak into the playoffs as the 7th or 8th seed, you can put it on guys that we've got to defend. Now, the question is, Steve Nash, Mike D'Antoni, we know won't emphasize defense. But Steve Nash has got to be smart enough to emphasize defense. And he wasn't a great individual defender, but a very good team defender. And that's what he can emphasize to some of those guys that aren't great individual defenders.
You know what I'm thinking? No one's talking about the Bucks. Old reigning 2-time MVP just sitting over there. Old Drew Holiday. No one's taking the Bucks. So I'll take the Bucks. And Nick, here's what I wonder. We talked about it all last year. 30 minutes in the regular season. Come playoff time. What am I going to do now? Take the training wheels off? Nope. 30 minutes in the playoffs. I wonder if Giannis is like, look, guys, I know you're treating me with kid gloves. I'm the franchise. Let me play. Let me play. Let me get up to 35 minutes, 36 minutes. Let me really push. And I know the analytics said we had the best point differential historically because we sort of managed my minutes. Let me turn me loose. I want to play. And if Coach Bud is not receptive to that because it's an ask, but it's a demand from their franchise player.
So I think that's smart, and I think they should do that. And I love Giannis. I have 2 concerns about the Bucks. One is, I know who their best 5 are. I don't know that they have any depth at all. And in the playoffs, that doesn't matter that much unless someone tweaks an ankle, unless someone goes out. And all of a sudden, you're playing a guy like DJ Augustine playoff minutes, and you can't do that.
Dante.
And my other question, Broussard, with the Bucks is, did Giannis get better? Because if Giannis didn't get better, they can't win 4 playoff rounds. I love him. I think one day he'll get better. But did he get better, Broussard? If not, they can't win 4 rounds in the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think he'll improve his post game, his mid-range jump shot, 3-point shot, but they got to get much better for them to win. And remember, he still doesn't have that second star. Even LeBron has always needed a second star. Giannis is the same way.
Everybody's sleeping on the Celtics.
Shots on the way out the door.
Everybody's sleeping on the Boston Celtics. I will quietly sit on that corner, see what my guy Danny Ainge could possibly have done in the offseason.
Brooklyn Nets.
Undisputed starts right now. Broussard, thank you. We'll see you tomorrow.